Welcome to This Story Needs to Be Heard with Lance Gunkel and Adam Steen. This Story Needs to Be Heard is a collection of stories from unsung heroes who are living a life of impact in Iowa and across the nation. This series is brought to you by Syverson Strege, a financial planning firm that exists to help enrich and empower your life and the community. Syverson Strege's focus is to assist clients to be good stewards of their resources to pursue their passions. Join us as we capture stories that need to be heard.
Hello, thank you for joining us today for the This Story Needs to Be Heard interview series. My name is Lance Gunkel. I'm the Managing Director at Syverson Strege, and joining me is my colleague Adam Steen. He is our Director of Business Development. Today, we are excited to have Lori Schaefer-Weaton joining us. Lori is the president of Agri-Industrial Plastics in Fairfield, Iowa. She is known as a decorated executive in the manufacturing industry. She is an expert in workforce gap issues and a vocal proponent of teaching kids how they can have careers and fulfilling lives in advanced manufacturing. So Lori, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
I know we're looking forward to hearing your story and the message you have to share with all of us. So to begin, your life journey involves, among other things, business and very specifically a family business. So can you tell us about your path to becoming the president of Agri-Industrial Plastics?
Sure. So I would have to start way back in middle school. So in 1978, my dad founded Agri-Industrial Plastics Company. Great entrepreneurial story. He, started with a loan from a bank of $10,000, a handwritten business plan, second mortgaged our house, the whole nine, right? And he has grown that business over time to be something quite incredible. So in middle school, when he started it, I'll never forget, my cousins were visiting from Des Moines, and he called us all in to be on the assembly line. I'm pretty sure my cousins never came back, but we thought it was great. So we were part of, from day one, the excitement of making the first product, which happened to be a pig feeder for a company in Des Moines called Kane Manufacturing, a company that's still a customer today, 42 years later. So that in and of itself talks a lot about who we are at Agra. In middle school then, I earned some extra cash by cleaning the restrooms, not a job I would recommend. And then in college, I actually came back and worked in the summers 4 to midnight on the production line again, which was I thought it was great because I could go lay out during the day and get a tan and yet still make a lot of money at night. So for me, it was perfect. And then honestly, my journey after that was college. I went away to Valparaiso University in Indiana. And like all of my college roommates, we moved immediately downtown Chicago. And I was in the Chicagoland area for about 15 years, 10 of that with one technology services company that gave me I was an accountant, finance girl by trade, I guess. But that company really gave me just a broad stroke of experiences. I started as a staff accountant. I lived in Germany for a year. And then I got into sales and ended up in strategic planning, which at the end of the day really has benefited how I transitioned into Agra. So then I did the stay-at-home mom thing for 5 years. And when I started thinking about going back to work, I remember a phone call with my dad where I was lobbying for a sales territory in Chicago that didn't exist yet. And he heard, "Oh, you're coming back to Agra." So it was we needed an interpreter. But at the end of the day, we ended up moving back. And, when you do have kids, it's great to be around family. And the thought of raising them in a small town was very appealing to me. So I moved back in 2005. And really the transition was pretty gradual. I came back to be part of the team, not to take over, not with any lofty title, but I did have a lot to bring, having been in the corporate world for a long time. And Agri was at this point of growth where, for instance, they didn't have an ERP system yet. And that was something that I was like, we got to get that done. So I was able to jump in on a lot of company-wide projects at the time and really be part of taking Agri to that next level. And so again, the timing was great for me. I think then over time, my dad and I, you have to kind of figure out how you're going to work together. And I think we did that pretty well. I think it's got to start from a point of respect. And I think, and I feel very strongly that me going away and earning my stripes somewhere else and having value to bring back is what made it work. And then from the time I came back, we weren't looking for any crazy, like, Lori's got to be president, in 2 years. But we did have a long-term strategy. And I think by the time we executed on it in 2013, I had built my own senior management team. Hiring the right people is by far what I continue to feel is my biggest responsibility to Agri. And so by 2013, we were ready. And I think it was a sense of calm for our customers and for our employees and honestly for the community, because when you are a bigger company in a small town, the contribution to that community is pretty significant and you don't want to see it going away. And honestly, most people don't want to see it being purchased by private equity with a big question mark for the future. So again, it just evolved over time, but and Dick is still involved. He's still chairman of the board. We still spend time bouncing ideas off of one another. So for us, that's kind of how we balance the family with the business, and it's worked for us.
That's awesome. Lori, it's interesting your story and how you ventured back into the family business. I actually was brought back to Des Moines from my father in 2004. I was living in Minneapolis and working up there, and he was in the venture capital investment banking industry, and I called him to let him know, what I was doing and some of my frustrations. And he heard, hey, what do you think about moving back here and being sort of a door opener for me? And through talking with him, it brought me back in 2004. And I maybe had, it was either 4 or 5 years with him. I mean, he's still around, but he ended up transitioning out. So I have some experience in family-owned business. And my question, I think you probably maybe touched on it a little bit. One of the things I learned was really how to listen, because of course I knew everything going in, and he would tell me things and let me kind of get wounded a little bit out there. But what would you say from your perspective is the biggest lesson that you've learned so far working in the family business?
Yeah. So that's a long list of lessons learned, as you might imagine, on many fronts. But I guess there's a couple. One, at the end of the day, it is a business, and you have to make decisions based on that, right? Good, solid business decisions. You can't let emotion overtake that. And I know for a fact that if my dad thought I wasn't the most qualified person for this job, he wouldn't have put me here. And I think that's good. And I think when I consider having 5 kids and that question comes up about, well, do you think any of them will come back? I'm like, we'll have to see. If it's a passion for them, maybe. If they have something to bring to the table, maybe. So I can't just answer that based on the last name. Yeah. And I also think, it really does take a team to be successful. So whether I was working in corporate America, publicly traded world, which I'm really glad I don't, by the way, but, or, smaller company world that I am now, you need a team of really bright, really motivated people that you can empower to go do. At the end of the day, Agri is an engineering company. And again, I'm not an engineer. I'm a finance chick. So, I have to make sure that I surround myself constantly with people who are smarter than me. And then I give them the tools and the support to go do and to continue to build our business. And so that's a lesson learned. And then I think on the personal side, the biggest lesson probably learned up front was when I go to the lake house with my parents and our family, I'm daughter. I don't want to be president of AGRA. I spend a lot of time every week in that role. And so Dick and I had to find a way of not engaging in too much work talk.
Yep.
And I remember one time saying, listen, if we need to talk about this, we're going to take it off site, you and I, and we're going to go talk about it. But I can't come in and out of that role. I really just want to be here as your daughter, as, sister, mom. And so we charted that out pretty quickly after some fairly heated conversations around a dining room table that no one else wanted to be at. So that I'd say that those are some of the, lessons that I've learned.
That's awesome. Yeah, I can remember several dinner conversations and looking at the other family members and them you just knew they didn't want to be there. So we had to shut those conversations down fairly quickly.
Yeah.
Well, you mentioned a couple times so far expertise and finding experts and finding the right people and building teams. And one thing that I've always found fascinating about you is how active you are within what I would call trade associations and sort of manufacturing focused associations like the Association of Business and Industry, like Elevate Advanced Manufacturing, groups like that. And so not going with a business focus on those trade associations, but more from a personal standpoint. What about your volunteer work within those associations and organizations? What about your work there fulfills you? What fulfills you with your work in those associations?
Yeah, that's a great question. So again, I would say, as many of us, we learn from our parents, and my parents set the bar very high when it comes to giving back. And giving back money, of course, people think of that right out of the gate, but really giving back your time and your talents is a lot more, worth a lot more many times. And so they set the bar pretty high, and living in a small town especially, it is important that you take on roles, economic development, bank boards, school boards. I mean, it's really important that we have good, high quality people on those roles to keep the community strong. And if we can keep our community strong, then I'm going to have a better workforce, and I'm going to have a better place to raise my kids and all my employees' families. So it definitely starts from that vantage point. But when I think about my contacts, people like you that I've met through ABI, it fuels my passion to be around others that are working on common goals. And just, the caliber of people that I have met through, and specifically ABI, is amazing. I mean, I can, based on my relationships, I can pick up the phone and talk to any number of people that I hold in the highest regard. Owners of companies all across the state of Iowa would absolutely take the time if I had a question or a concern. Mark Hannawalt, and I mean, I could just name, 50 people that would say, yeah, I've got time for this. What do you need? And I think to have that outside counsel, people you can trust, you're not competing with them, but we're all dealing with it, grasping with the same, issues. And so I have time and time again been refueled by those associations. And I am very passionate about it. And some of it is, driven by the fact that I think if we're really going to continue to grow manufacturing in the state of Iowa, that we have to be crazy passionate about it. And we've got to be, action oriented. But a lot of it is just, I really enjoy the people and I have learned so much from them.
Yeah, that's cool.
All right, Lori, you talked about looking to others for their expertise and getting refueled. So I'm looking to you on this one. I want to switch gears on our topics. And so as we sit here for this interview, we're in the midst of the COVID pandemic, and this has created, well, at least for me, a lot of fatigue. It's dominated most every conversation for the past many months. And in my role as a business leader, a spouse, a parent, everything has been colored by the pandemic.
Yep.
And from a business standpoint, it's required solid leadership. And from what I know of your story, you strike me as a resilient leader. So this is where I'm looking for some positivity. In this time that we're in today, why are you excited to be a leader?
Well, I think in every challenging time, opportunities arise. And I think it can create, moments of you actually are going to come out of it better than you went in. None of us would have chosen to go through what we've gone through. I mean, we had 2 months where our big OEM shut down and our sales dropped by 45% like overnight. And they just said, halt all orders, we're shut down. And we're like, whoa. So definitely a challenge beyond like I've ever seen, including, the dip we had, whenever that was, 08, 09, which was a little bit more foreseeable, a little bit more, you knew the term of it, you kind of knew what to expect based on history. And this is definitely different. I immediately, I guess, have been impressed by my team. So I immediately, pulled my team together. And again, that kind of togetherness, you either rise and fall and shortcomings become really apparent in bad times, right? Yeah. You can cover up a lot with, when the money's coming in, you can justify a lot, you can cover up a ton of sins, and you can't do that right now. And I think that knowing that we're going to come out of this stronger, in all honesty, even if that means losing some people that weren't on board and maybe were never on board, I think that's okay. It is hard to, it's interesting. We had our offsite mid-year business plan review a couple weeks ago. And during that time, in the middle of this, we're going through ISO certification for the first time. And we have been able to continue to keep the momentum on new project development, on things like ISO certification, which is a giant company-wide initiative. And at the end of that 2-day meeting, I kind of sat back and I'm like, I gotta say, like, I'm impressed. We could have used COVID as an excuse to stop in our tracks, and we didn't do that, including tough decisions to continue to invest in things. That robot that we'd spent all this time designing, I could have easily said, no way, we got to just cut it. But, I look at that and I go, man, we're going to need that in 12 months, or we're not going to be ready to go on that next, Kubota job or that next Toro job. So I think people surprise you during these times. And I'm also really fortunate that I have so many strong, beyond my senior management team, so many strong people that have been with this company for years and years and years. And, they would come up to me and say, you know what, you guys are doing fine. We're doing fine. And that gives you a lot of, again, fills your tank, whatever you want to say. They recognize that we were doing the best we could, that we were in it for them. In the middle of the whole thing, we gave out because we'd cut hours, we gave just one Friday a random $1,000 bonus to anybody that was hourly, because we knew what they accepted as a cut in pay overnight. And, they're appreciative of things like that. We're in it for the long haul. We're going to make it through this, and we'll be here next year, 5 years from now, way beyond COVID. So, but it's been tough. I mean, the positivity, when you're canceling other things on the personal side, like vacations and time with friends, and, I'm pretty social. So, just those absence of those things definitely take a hit.
Next question is again related to COVID. It's a time when many businesses or individuals are having to rethink what they do. Maybe they feel stuck or they need to pivot and make a change. Is there some advice you can give for someone who either needs to make a change in their career, or if they are a business leader, if they need to pivot their business plan?
Yeah, so I guess on the individual level, especially kind of going into this phase of consultant with my older kids as they explore careers and, think about where do they want to be, what do they want to do. I know we hear it all the time, but I say it a lot. You got to find something you're passionate about. If you don't, you're going to have a really long, exhausting, life, and you're not going to give back at the level you should be giving back. And so I am a big fan of, you got to do something you're passionate about at the end of the day. Try to turn that passion into your life's work. And life's too short. At the end of the day, if you're miserable in your job, everyone around you is miserable. Everyone knows it's not a good fit. And that's kind of comes back to good leadership as well. It's interesting if you've ever had to have a conversation with an individual who you can see is absolutely stuck. They're in it for the paycheck. They don't like what they're doing. They're miserable every day. They're actually trying to sink the boat versus row with us. And, I've had those conversations just outright. It doesn't seem like you really want to be here. And maybe you should go look for something else. And I'm going to support you in that. And sometimes people are shocked by that. But I think we all need to do that every once in a while. Look in the mirror. If you're not feeling the same level of energy you used to have for your job, for your, the board you sit on, whatever it is, rethink it. It's never too late, no matter how old you are. So that would be one thing. I just think life's too short to be in something you don't like. And then, of course, I just say, if you're feeling stuck, I go back to my network and people who can give me good advice. So when you talk about pivoting a business, yeah, that's interesting. I think that what I was reminded of as our OEMs were shutting down, and so we weren't making a lot of fuel tanks for, ATVs and wave runners and things like that during that time. But man, our old customers, they were going gangbusters. We make slides, and I'm sure you guys have heard of it, anything to do with outdoor recreation, booming. So I was so happy that we had a slide customer, and they just kept putting orders in. I'm like, awesome. So it was a lesson, maybe not in pivoting, but not in putting all your eggs in one basket, which we all learned in business school, but it's really easy to forget when the high dollar, high margin stuff seems like it's always going to come in. We do work for a traffic device company, so they're going gangbusters. The tile that you see in the fields, they're going crazy. So I think I'm probably not a great advisor on pivoting completely. Although I do know my husband, who had a company where they can make anything based on their cutting equipment. They went right into the mask business, and they supplied hundreds of thousands of masks for the state of Iowa, U of I hospitals, the local hospitals. And so that was it was fun for me to watch, because talk about something that just fills your soul, right? You're actually helping the critical healthcare workers get through this at a time where we were, all of a sudden the state was short. So he was able to reply quickly to the call. And so that was a great example of pivoting. So again, in crisis, opportunities do exist. So I guess I would say just be ready for them when they are, and don't be afraid to try it.
Yeah, I think what I'm taking from what you said there is that we can get stuck in these ruts of thinking we are one way, either as a person or a business. Mm-hmm. And maybe we need to remind ourselves to take off the blinders and be open to other opportunities when they arise.
Yes.
Because, you just pointed out that even though we're in a bad economic situation, there are opportunities out there, and we found some of them. So
absolutely.
I think that's a great example.
Absolutely.
I think that's interesting too. And I actually used that example, Lori, in a presentation of the mask situation with the state of Iowa and Nate's company. I spoke to a Rotary group about entrepreneurship and just different ways to do things. And I use that as an example, as a brilliant, if not beautiful example of public-private partnership. And how, oh, wow, can and should we do more of that across the state of Iowa? Because we've got the talent, we've got the resources right here in the state of Iowa to do some really neat things. So
we definitely do. And I think it's, it's a secret that we tend to keep really well.
Yep.
All the great, manufacturing and all the capabilities that we have in the state of Iowa, it blows your mind once you're aware of it. But so many people in the state are not. And I think that, I always, when I get a chance to talk about manufacturing, I always put up that slide that shows, what's the biggest contributor to our state's GDP. And everyone thinks what? Everyone thinks it's ag. And then you flip the chart and you're like, well, actually, and we support a lot of ag products. So I'm, certainly not anti. It's a great combination. But yeah, the capabilities and the manufacturing pockets that we have are just amazing.
Yeah, I love it. I think it's great. So I'm going to switch gears slightly here as well. So looking into the next few years, however many years you want to look out, what are you most excited or what are you most passionate to achieve, either personally or professionally, over the next few years?
I would say professionally, I still feel like Agra's at a place where we are really well positioned to have a significant growth. So I continue to be very passionate about seeing us get to that level. I continue, again, it's interesting. I have a guy coming in this afternoon. I don't have an open position, but if this guy is who I think he is, and he's a good fit with our culture, we'll find a position. So I continue to get super excited when I find somebody that I think is going to contribute to our company and just be the right fit. And so that I think that will always kind of fulfill me and drive me. So that continuing to bring talent in, and that's on the floor too. I spent a lot of time talking to middle school and high school about those opportunities, front door to back door at Agra. We have professional positions, of course, engineering and all, sales and everything in between. But then the stuff that we do out on our floor, the guys who actually make it work, amazing careers. And so I'm still completely passionate about making sure that every kid knows that you don't need to go to a 4-year school to have an amazing career and be part of a great company. And I'm not anti 4-year school. Again, we've got all types of careers, but there's just a lot of opportunities. So I'll continue to preach that message for a long time, I think. Personally, I think after COVID, I just want to go on some trips, man. I want to get back on an airplane and get back to St. Martin and some other places. We had to pull the plug on our spring break the 2 days before, and it just was a killer. One of the few times that, my parents and all 5 of our kids probably will be together, for a really long time. So I am, personally looking back just to having those more face-to-face connections and being able to travel and that sort of thing. So that would probably be the 2 things I would focus on.
I know for me, these last few months having, so many restrictions, it's really helped me define what I enjoy, what I'm passionate about doing. So for my last question, I would ask you what message you might want to leave us all with. Maybe it's something that can encourage us to take that leap forward in pursuit of our passions.
Yeah. So I don't even know if Adam knows this, but 2 years ago, 2 days before my daughter's graduation, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. And I don't recommend this, by the way, as a strategy for setting your priorities. But I will tell you that in a moment of 5 minutes, it resets your priorities. And, I think about that Tim McGraw song, live like you were dying. And honestly, that moment for me, even though I was, I felt like I was completely engaged in my work and my family. But it really was, am I spending my time on the right things? And it gave me, of course, I had to do it. I only had so much energy then for the next year. I only had so much, I continued to power through with work, but it was a long recovery. And I think we should all just try to live with that kind of appreciation for where we're spending our time and our energy, and making sure we're surrounded by positive energy and positive people. I actually did just dropped a couple boards right out of the gate. And I just said, you know what, this is not empowering me. This isn't filling my, tank or whatever you want to say. And I said, I got to just back off of these. And even now, I know that I wouldn't have done that otherwise. I would have continued to spend my time there and been like an okay board member, probably not super impassioned. So I think you have to not be afraid to evaluate your life wherever it's at with a sense of urgency, because, and especially once you have kids, time does just start going so quickly. So whether you have a cancer diagnosis or not, time is going fast. And so I would just say, yeah, don't let fear hold you back. Things will work out the way they're supposed to, but don't let complacency define you. And a paycheck, again, not worth it if you're not feeling it. So I guess that's what I would leave you with. I would sing the Tim McGraw song, but I can't sing. So you can superimpose it on your video.
We can bring that in. We'll do something creative there. Lori, I'm going, and Lance, I'm going a little off script here, if not completely off script. But what you just said, as far as just not living in fear and doing what fills your tank and removing things that drag you down. What an amazing opportunity this pandemic has created to reevaluate that and just say, what gets me out of bed in the morning? What am I excited about? And oh, by the way, time, as we can see, is so finite.
Yeah.
Why not use those moments for something that will better yourself and better others around you? So I think that's just an awesome message. I love that.
Yeah. I think the other message is, we always tell our kids that thing about, who you hang out with will define you, and who pick your friends very carefully, because they will either bring you down or hold you up. And I, too, having an amazing support network around me. So fortunate, right? I didn't have to worry about losing my job. I didn't have to, I had family, I had friends, I had, great husband. But that rule should not just apply as teenagers. That rule should also be a big reminder to all of us. And again, it goes back to your network and your friends and your associates, really surrounding yourself with those positive people that aren't trying to bring you down. They really are, lifting you up. That's another reminder that I just think, whether that's at work or, outside of work, it's pretty important. And I think we all know the difference, when we're with people, but again, sometimes it's hard to just make a change and say, maybe I don't need to spend so much time with, this person. So just
and
another
don't name
good
names.
Yeah, no names.
Oh, that's awesome.
Lori, if we can go back to your prior answer, when you had that moment of clarity in the years since then, have you found yourself kind of reverting back to, normal? Have you had to remind yourself of that clarity so that you can stay as passionate as you were when your eyes were opened?
I would say that's probably a natural progression, but it's still pretty, when you continue to have, I don't know, the protocol and the, on the medical side that you never thought you'd have. Unfortunately, I have a lot of reminders just based on those appointments. But I think it's just a daily thing that you have to remind yourself of. And so it's probably going to be a natural progression a little bit, with every passing day, it seems a little bit more normal. I don't know. I'd have to think about that. I think I cut a lot of things that aren't back, so that's good. But it's a reminder not to get involved with anything that's going to, bring you down. And so far so good, I would say.
Good. I mean, your message is really resonating, with me. I think it's a reminder that we may face limitations, whether they are brought on from a health perspective or from a pandemic that shuts everything down. Things can change very quickly, and there's no use in wasting the time that we have right now to do the things that we really enjoy and that fill our buckets with happiness.
Yeah.
Lori, thank you for spending the time today and sharing your message. I hope our listeners are able to take your words and be inspired towards achieving what they are passionate about. So on behalf of my colleague Adam and the team at Syverson Strege, thank you for listening to This Story Needs to Be Heard. Be well, everybody.
Thank you for listening to This Story Needs to Be Heard. If you know of a story that needs to be heard or would like us to help you in your pursuits, please contact Adam Steen at asteen@onlyworkforyou.com.